So this is the June meeting of the koha-US acquisition SIG. Welcome, everyone. Just to let everybody know, the proposals for presentations at the koha conference is open through the end of the month, I think.
It was yesterday, last I heard.
Oh, yesterday. Okay. Well,
but maybe they've updated it again.
Yeah, who knows? I'm sure if today you put in a presentation proposal, they would be happy to consider it. Yes, it's in what is it? Plymouth? No.
Providence.
Providence. It was one of those P ones. Providence, Rhode Island. September 2nd through whatever that 5th is what it is. So if you can make it there, it would be great. And we'll, it's a great way to meet people in 3 dimensions instead of 2, and chat about stuff more in depth and just get to know people. It's a great experience. So the conference, getting your proposals in, that's the main thing I wanted to make sure we touched on. I do have some questions from, let's see if I can pull them up, from the Acquisitions 2.0 group that I wanted to run past everybody. So the first question is, are you using basket groups? And if so, how? So
I can say that we were trying to use them, but the way the interface works, you can't add multiple baskets easily. It was limited to 25 at a time, and then it wouldn't add additional ones. So the functionality was not working for us. So we just gave up. I actually opened a bug on it. I think it's something to do with the front end interface. So I guess the answer is no, we tried to, but it didn't work. So we gave up.
okay. I think they're sort of leaning toward getting rid of them because they don't think people use them, but the reason people don't use them may be because they're not designed spectacularly. Is there anybody else that uses them, or because as I said, they may go away. So if you are using them, sing out.
I thought we didn't. Honestly, I'm guessing we don't because I don't recognize the name basket groups.
Okay.
So I'm going through our acquisitions right now just to see if I can find out what it looks like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just the only use case that they came up with at the meeting was to print PDFs of your orders. It was like the only way you could get to be able to do that. I have no idea what our use case is for them, but oops.
Yeah, we probably don't use it then.
Okay, I just get prompted for them, but I have no idea what they do. Yeah, I think that's pretty standard for everybody. It's there. I think, let's see, somewhere here. No, there. Let me see if I can pull this up in, there it is, in the test server. Yeah, so let me share the screen just so that if you have no idea what we're talking about, you'll have some idea. So this is the Koha demonstration server. And so this basket groups thing here is that's a search option. And I think anybody can find this. I think that if, let me just look under, oops. Got baskets. And then, yeah, so there's like this field that says basket group, but in our system, nothing is ever in that field because we don't use them. But that's the kind of thing. I'm not even sure where they get set up, honestly. So, okay, I think we can say that nobody really uses them. Now, the other thing that I think more people do use, and let me stop sharing for a second, and then do this just a minute. So,
Rhonda,
yeah,
so I do remember something about when they created the basket groups, and I feel like when we're going through these questions, like I feel like I need to do more research, like instead of just saying, "Oh, we're not using these, let's let them know." Because I'm thinking, "Oh, could I have used them like when we got some grants and I had baskets that only pertain to this grant? Would that be helpful?" I mean, I'm just not sure yet to make that decision to say, "Oh yeah, we're not using them and we'll have no need for them. Let's just wipe them out." So I think that's why I put in the chat, like I thought we were going to get an email about all proposed changes and then we would be able to comment on them and maybe look into them a little bit more.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think Jesse actually sent anything out. But what I can do is after this, after we kind of talk and everybody kind of knows what we're talking about, I can send out an email after the meeting and then give you a chance to dig through and look in the manual, see what these things are used for, that kind of thing. We are going to meet again in 2 weeks, the acquisitions 2.0 group. So if you could get the feedback back by then, that would be helpful. Does that help, Christie?
Yeah, no, it does. I know there were some things that were addressed last meeting, like pricing. She's like, "Oh, we want to get rid of this field," but again, without it written out and just deleting stuff, I feel like I would like to dive a little bit deeper instead of just saying, "Oh, on a call, yeah, we're not using it," but what if that's a good feature? And it seems like some of these features would have been added for a reason, like as an asset, and maybe not. But I just, like I said, if I had an email with descriptions so I can go through one by one, it might be helpful.
Okay. Great way to sort baskets by library. Okay, this is from John. If they were to add a solid way for libraries to keep acquisition details separate when they are separate groups.
Separate institutions is what I meant to say.
Okay.
Because we have two different organizations with one koha. We would like to keep it separate. And that was one method we tried was basket groups. It did not pan out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good information. Let me make a note of this. So you've got 2 institutions and a way to separate, I guess.
I'm just adding the link to creating a basket group,
Okay.
the chat, if anything.
separate the baskets. I think I'll understand. Okay. And one of the things just popped into my head. One of the things that they are talking about is changing the term basket to PO, because more people know what a PO, you know, they understand a PO more better than a basket, which seems to be a very koha term. Nobody else uses the term basket. So they're trying to use something that's maybe a little more common for people. But that just popped into my head. The other thing, is that all the comments people have on basket groups? So I think this will be helpful.
I would like to comment that we don't use POs. So I know that on our vendor website, they're called carts. So carts and baskets to us are kind of like interchangeable, but PO, I mean, I'm sure we'd understand it, but we don't even use POs. So that wouldn't be a great term for us.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think they're pretty set on that one at this point. I don't think we're going to be changing that one out, but thanks for the feedback. That's important. Orders, yeah, would also maybe be, yeah, they're using orders in a different way, kind of like order line. They talk about order lines. And so after we get done with this question, I wanted to kind of talk through that whole order line concept too. So the other thing is library groups, and I'm sure people have library groups. There it is. So I'm thinking, you know, consortiums or bigger libraries will have library groups. And then the question is, you know, basically what's your situation? Are you a consortium? Are you just a really big library? Are using library groups for other modules, because library groups can be used in the patron modules and the item modules. And then to start out, they were thinking to just have some limited features for acquisitions and then expand. But would it be enough to have a new feature in the library groups configuration menu under actions to enable limit acquisition order data access by group? So basically it would allow it would allow people that are within the same group to see the same acquisition, you know, to see the acquisitions order. But if you weren't in that group, you couldn't see the acquisitions information. So that would be one, you know, that would be kind of the foundation of using library groups in the acquisitions module. So is anybody here, do you use groups? Okay, John?
Yeah, again, we do, because we are two separate freestanding institutions with one koha, not officially in a consortium. And we do use it for preventing items from being edited. So yeah, that sounds like exactly the sort of thing we would like.
Okay, that's good.
Depending on how it's implemented, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's where we haven't implemented it yet, but library groups is something that we're looking to help us with our permissions, especially with like staff permissions and stuff like that. So that's what we're working on with library groups.
Okay, yeah, I think that's.
It might also be useful, sorry, I'll turn on my camera just briefly. It might also be useful, you know, this GOBI, they don't call it the API, the plugin that they have, because they don't use EDI. And the problem is all the orders come in and there's no indication which library they're from. So I don't know if you had even a library group for each individual library, then maybe that would help you limit it.
Okay, so that's the GOBI What'd you say?
It's a GOBI plugin for,
Yeah, that's what I was referencing earlier with the library groups, because we order 100 books, we get 100 baskets. And then if 2 libraries are doing that, and they're all just a serial number or an order number, so it gets out of hand very quickly. And that could be partially a limitation of the plugin too, but still.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, okay. Maribel says, we do have groups, and at this time, we only have our collection development team have access to acquisitions. Okay.
I think we're also using our library groups for like our outreach vans. We're setting up separate circulation stuff for them using library groups. We haven't like totally figured it out, but again, we're testing a lot with library groups. So yeah.
Okay. This is in testing, I will call that. Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, so the base function would be limit acquisition order data access by groups. I think that would be a good place to start, because they wanted to get library groups in as early as possible, because retrofitting it could be very difficult, because they ended up doing that with another module, and it was not cool. All right, to give a sense of what it looks like and why it would be helpful to have some options to do differently. Right, so, oh my. Yeah, that is kind of a pain, where every item has its own basket. Oh, okay. That is. All right. I wanted to just also kind of do a high level walkthrough of the workflow that they're talking about doing. So right now in Koha, you start with a vendor, and then you create a basket for that vendor, and then you fill that basket however you want to do that. From an existing record, from a file, from a purchase suggestion, all those, brand new thing. They're trying to come up with some more flexible ways of doing things. So right now, the workflow would be you have a choice. You can do it the way traditionally Koha has always done it, where you create, in the new term, it would be a PO, and, assigned to a vendor, and create that, and things would progress pretty much the same as they do now. The other option that they want to add is to start from an order line. So within your basket / PO, you would have each item that's in there, each thing that you've ordered is an order line, and that's all got its own, information stored in the database, everything. So what you could do is start with an order line. If you want to order this book, but maybe you're not sure which vendor you want to order it from, or I'm not completely clear of what all the situations would be where you'd want to do this. I know basically some of the other ILSs use this method, where you start with the order line, and then you build your basket / PO from that. So then you would have the order line, and you could say, it's this book, and this is the vendor, or the thought is there might be the ability to not specify the vendor and just have kind of a draft order line that you could have in your system. And then when you know how you want to order it, or maybe you want to order it from multiple vendors, you could maybe do something like that. And then, you know, you'd fill in all the information about the order line, and then you would save it. And depending on whether you put the vendor in or not, you could, if you put the vendor in, you would create a basket / PO with that one item in it. And then, you know, if you wanted to add from other places to that basket, you could do that as well. But that's kind of the two ways that you'd be able to add things to a basket / PO, excuse me, in the Acquisitions 2.0. So there are, you know, they've been working on some mock-ups. They're not really ready for prime time yet. But that kind of idea. Has anybody used an ILS where they start with the order line and then build the basket from there?
We haven't, but how would this affect EDI ordering, if at all?
It shouldn't affect it at all, because we've got the same process that we currently have. And, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, the US people and the English people are watching, is to make sure that EDI will still function properly. You would still be able to build a PO basket / PO from, you know, taking downloading a file from, say, Ingram, uploading it into Koha, just like we do now, and go through all the steps like that. That should stay, that will stay the same. And yeah, it shouldn't affect the EDI process at all.
We have one library who tries to emulate that on Koha already, because they use it. They basically get in book lists. It's a university. They get in book lists of, you know, what the tutors want to order, and they create the items, but then they go and search to see where they can get them cheapest. So that's why they then want to be able to say, well, that one is cheaper on that site, so I'll assign it to that vendor, and this one goes to another vendor. So they might have started off with a book list from one department, and they'll end up with orders going to 3 or 4 vendors wherever they get the best deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
that's kind of what I was thinking too.
So Daphne, then do they have to transfer once you have that order, if it's multiple vendors for multiple items, do you then have to transfer those items out of the cart into a new cart with that vendor?
yeah, that's the way they do it at the moment. So everything goes into a temporary vendor when they're building the basket in the beginning, and then when they decide to buy something, they transfer it out in. So they would create baskets then for each of the vendors, and they transfer items out of the temporary basket into the vendor's basket. They also do that as well, because as well as tracking the to see where they'll get it cheapest, they're then looking to see if they've enough money left in their funds, or if they need to sort of go and try and raise money elsewhere. So they're doing a little bit of that, but they always did it that way. I can't remember what they, you know, it's so long that they've been on COA. They came from a very old system where they could do that, and they just wouldn't change when they came to COA. They were, no, this is the best way to do it. So even though it's cumbersome, they've continued doing it.
Okay. All right. And John commented that may have worked on a system like that, but we've always used EDI, so that kind of didn't really have to go down that path. Yeah, I was trying to think myself of situations where we would build the item first, you know, and the only one that I could think of was if we wanted to shop around, you know, we wanted it in the system, but then we wanted to shop around for, you know, Bound to State Bound or Libraria or Baker and Taylor or Ingram or, you know, whoever we wanted to actually get the items from. And sometimes we'll buy the same book for multiple items just because, you know, one company has a better binding, you know, and we want to have it, but then we want to get some cheaper ones just because of our budget. You know, they'll last for a while and maybe they'll last long enough that the item won't be as popular and the well-bound ones will still be there when we need them. Okay. Any thoughts or questions about that information?
We had a meeting, I think, with them many months back, when they were in the process of starting, I guess it was Europe or, and I know I had mentioned this before, but it's become a big problem with our vendor. We're currently using BroadArt, but I know it's an issue with other vendors that about overlaying records. And when I had mentioned it on the call, they said, "Oh, this is new. We hadn't run into this. I know it's been a bug in Koha for a long time." But what we're having to do is create double the accounts with our vendor because we don't want added copies to be overlaid. And I know that the vendor has contacted me several times because they're opening new accounts and they're losing money as a result of it. And I know that other ILS systems have the capability of, you know, not overlaying records if it's already in the system. Do you know if this is something that's being addressed?
I don't think we're that far down the road yet. We haven't gotten to talking about the records coming back in. So far, we've just been talking about ordering. So when that comes up, you know, when we start talking about receiving, I can bring that up. Okay, I've made a note of that. Yeah, because we have double accounts in Ingram. They've never said anything to us about losing money because of that, though. That surprises me. Okay. All right. Did anybody have any questions that you wanted to ask the group?
So I have a question. I guess it's back to the PO and about decisions being made. So like 3 of our vendors, Baker and Taylor, Midwest Tape, and Find a Way, Play Away use the term cart. A couple of other ones use list. But you're saying, Rhonda, that they've already made a decision to go with PO and that's not changeable?
That's my impression that I've got. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely won't be basket. But I think in Europe, it's PO is the phrase that gets used most often. So I think that's kind of what they're going with. I'm just trying to pull up the just looking through the 2505 updates for acquisitions. There's something, migrate vendors to view. Something to do with the interface for vendors. I'm not really very clear on that, and it didn't seem like the people on the call were real clear about it either, but it's supposed to be a good thing, make things easier once you understand it.
So Vue is like a different JavaScript library, so it's going to load the page faster and slightly differently, and like
Okay.
Just makes it cleaner.
Okay. All right. That makes sense because I see view.js up here, and that makes sense. Enhancing user experience and maintainability is what they're saying. Okay. So under enhancements, we've got add ability to mark a suggestion as available from the suggestions management page. Sent to the patron. Okay, so the comment is that this enhancement adds the ability to mark a suggestion as available when it's not linked to an order. The available notice is then sent to the patron. I think, did Jesse and Nick do a Monday Minutes on this? I have a vague recollection of that. I'm not sure. Okay. Overlaying records. Okay, so that Christie put the link into the chat about the bug. Let me write that here. 31092 about overlaying records. Okay, Charlie found the Monday Minutes. Mark purchase suggestions as available. I watched that video. I wasn't real clear exactly what they were talking about, but if somebody else knows, that would be great. I wasn't sure if it was available in that we already had it in the catalog, or
So since we don't use acquisitions, but we do use purchase suggestions, I think the idea is like to trigger that notification. So when you're using acquisitions and you bring something in and it first becomes available, it sends a notice to the patron to say, hey, that's now here. But we don't have that with just plain purchase suggestions right now. So this will let us trigger that notice when it first becomes available.
Okay. Okay. And the other one is add the option to define the basket name in a mark file when added to the basket. So summary, some vendors include the intended basket name in the mark file, but Koha previously ignored this information. So now you can configure a mark order account to read a specified field in the mark file and use its value as the basket name. Oh, okay. Impact, it improves automation and vendor integration by reducing the need for manual basket names during order import. Okay. The way things, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how helpful that will be to us. It's from Europe, sponsored by European support system. So I don't know how their Edifact and our EDI, which are the same thing, just different names. are they're different. The workflow is different, and the workflow even between the ILS and the vendor is different. So it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out what they're doing and what we're doing. Any questions?
Anyone
Yeah.
dealing with any bugs? Oh, sorry, Joe.
Oh, I was just going to talk about the what Christie posted, as I've thought about that a little bit as well. Just the some
Overlay.
systems have like a date catalog. Some systems have a record status sort of indicator that's not in the MARC record, but it's there. So you can use it to determine if you want to overlay it or just add items to it. Just think, I could see that being a valuable feature.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll read this over more carefully later, and then when we get to the actual receiving of the items, I can mention this bug to them again. What are you going to say, Charlie?
Oh, I'm just kind of shopping around and to see if there are any persisting bugs, but like I totally forgot about the one in the chat here. Anything, is anybody having issues with when you're importing records, you're getting duplicate records? We used to have it when we first started EDI, and it's one order, so it's not like a persisting thing. I just wondered does anybody having any ideas as to why duplicate records would come in or would be created when you're importing records? She didn't do anything new, and the next order that she imported, it might just be one-off. I just wondered if anybody was having issues like that.
We had issues maybe about a year ago now, where we went to import records. It would duplicate the import, and then we'd import one of them and the other one would stay there and we just ignore it. But it was very strange and hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, I don't see it happening again, so.
Oh, okay.
But I don't see anything in Bugzilla, so I just wondered if there are any fun bugs out there.
Yeah, there is a comment. We've been having a lot of problems with duplicating records.
Specifically when you're importing or?
OCLC configuration.
Are you clearing out your export file?
Yeah, we have to close OCLC, I guess, to clear our export file, or it will. At least that's what I've been told, is that we have to close OCLC or it will re-input things. I was just surprised I've never encountered that before. I think there was more of a direct correlation that I've been before. So it's a new part of the workflow for me, but I have imported a lot of duplicates because I haven't closed my OCLC.
How are you importing them? Is it because you're exporting a file to your desktop, or are you doing like the listener method?
No, we import. Yeah, we export from desktop. Staging records.
Yeah, I know if you do a new OCLC session and then you export new records, it'll ask you to overwrite or append. But I actually used to have a little batch file I would run on my desktop to delete my OCLC or rename my OCLC file that I exported. And that would clear it out, but I just do it by hand these days. Don't know if that's what you're running into. It sounds like maybe something different.
No, that's it. It's just, I don't think it's bug per se. I think it's just user error on my part, but it's different than other systems that I've encountered. I have been asked to overwrite my file or not, I guess, if I leave it open. I was used to always having OCLC open on the desktop just all the time before.
Okay.
This isn't an acquisitions question, but just, I guess I could wait for sysadd sig group, but I'm trying to figure out if last_seen can let you view your ebook transactions from like platforms, or is that just from like the physical items? Like when you run a report and you have last_seen, like last seen history for the item, will it pull from just the physical items in your koha, or will it also pull in the circulation history from your platforms like Overdrive and or Libby and Cloud Library? Does that sound familiar to anybody? Like, where does the last seen pulled in that information? Is it just koha it's pulling it from?
I don't think there's any communication back and forth. We've got the Cloud Library plugin set up and the Hoopla plugin set up, but like, yeah, I think when I asked about that, using the ERM module to sort of track circulation, it would have to be connected or harvested using that module to get the circ data.
I thought so, but somebody was telling me that it was pulling the ebook stats, so I was just confirming that I didn't make something up in my head. Because yeah,
There
that's
might
what
be a way, I don't know.
yeah, no, that's how I understood that ERM is supposed to do. Like that's basically what the module is supposed to be for. Like it's pulling in your stats from, because you can't do it in koha. Like last seen can't capture that information. Okay, well, thank you. Confirmation.
I
Check.
guess you may be able to get some of that data from like like if they're authenticating with SIP every time they check out, maybe it's updating something. I
But
don't know.
would that information be pulled into the last seen?
No, I think
Mhm.
I've like browsed through the logs before for it, but I don't think that it's pulling it into the item itself.
Okay, I'll do more research, but thank you. That gives me more to go on.
If there aren't any more questions.
Oh, I had one book. I don't know where I've shared this, but I'm excited about it, so I'm just talking
Okay.
about it everywhere. It may have come up at this one because it is purchase suggestion related, but that table takes forever to load right now if it gets super big. And in the upgrade, they've switched that to using the REST API, so it's gonna load asynchronously, so that page is gonna load a lot faster, and I'm excited about that.
Wow. So or suggestions tables. Oh my goodness. If that loads faster, that would be heaven.
It should. That's the
So
yeah.
2505, it should be faster.
Yep.
Because that's one thing that all the staff that use the suggestions module are like, you can mark something as accepted or whatever, and then you can go on to the next one. And by the time you figure out the next one, the table will have refreshed just barely. And then you can go to, put in the information for the one. Yes, hooray, Marci says. That will be very exciting, very exciting. thanks for sharing that, Jason. That'll make my day.
Yeah, I know the exciting stuff is buried in the release notes, not up there at the
Yeah.
top, I guess.
Right, and it's not maybe the acquisition, I don't know, maybe suggestions table should put it in the acquisitions, but maybe not. Yeah, no, that will be good news. Okay. Oh, sorry. If we don't have any other questions, I think we can, let me give you the dates for the next meeting. So that will be July 8, same time. No. Yeah, what is today? 17. Nope, that's not true. It's July 15. I don't know how this year is going so fast, but there it is. It will be July 15 will be our next acquisitions meeting. And if you have any ideas about specific topics that you'd like to cover, you know, we can do a back to basics thing. We could do, you know, some of the little niche things that the acquisitions module does. Anything that you're interested in, happy to work with you. Importing authorities. Okay.
Especially from like backstage and stuff.
Yep.
I'd like to see everybody else's workflow because I feel like mine's a little bit disjointed.
Okay. Well, we have a guy who does that for us, so I can poke at him and see what his workflow is.
I have a question. It might be a big unsolvable problem, but if there was a way to better track subscription resources that you know you're going to keep forever, because basically right now you have to put a PO in and either put the price in or you put in a $0 and then it's not reflected as an encumbrance for that year. It would be lovely if there was a way to put in an order that would basically go up by 5% and you pay it once per year. And then when you get to the new fiscal period, it comes back again. Just because we can't track subscription databases, things like that easily within Koha. I have to do it outside of Koha. It would be nice if I didn't have to. And maybe there's some option there with the ERM if they start tying that in, but just a thought.
Okay. So basically some subscription that you have that you're not gonna give up, just a way to track that year to year without doing a whole lot of extra work.
Basically, yeah. And it would require a lot of additional functionality that I don't think is there right now, but maybe someday.
Okay, well, yeah, throw it out there, let them hear it, you know, it'll be in the back of their brain when they're doing stuff, so.
Rhonda, you were working on an enhancement for our budget for like end of fiscal year, you know, rolling things over. Where is that?
It got stalled in the whole process. When they went to integrate it, I guess, into the code, it didn't work. So now they're trying to rebase it, I guess is the term, and figure out how that will work. But I did notice when we were going through the acquisitions 2.0 that a lot of this functionality that we were hoping to get with that bug is already incorporated into 2.0. So I haven't been like really banging that drum to figure out what's going on, because it will end up in there anyway.
I think it's a good idea to go back to basics a little bit because I'm seeing a lot more people, like new people, on all the SIGs. So maybe if we just, especially since the fiscal year is closing out soon, maybe people would want to know like what are some tasks you have to do at the end of the year. I don't know, just whatever a new person would want to learn, I guess, going into koha.
Yep.
I for one, we're not open yet,
Okay.
and we're going to have a staff of about 4,
Okay.
which is complicated. So not having an acquisitions background, I'm interested, and I was going to email some folks out offline and just kind of say, if you were building it from scratch, what you know about koha, what kind of processes would you have in place?
Specifically for
for
acquisition?
limited staff, yes, specifically for acquisitions.
Okay.
We've got Baker and Taylor doing an opening day collection. We're importing records. We're doing those things, but that's not acquisitions really yet.
Maybe sending out like email to all the people in the listserv and just asking for questions from especially the new people, like what they're dealing with and what they'd like to learn. Then we don't have to we can kind of focus it more.
Okay.
But that sounds like a great idea. Bye, John.
Okay. So when you say the listserv, like the koha-US, like beyond acquisitions?
Oh, sorry,
specifically?
I meant the acquisition specifically because I'm
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. And just see what kinds of issues new people are having to deal with.
Right. I had a conversation with a librarian over in Oregon who was asking me about my end of the year processes and when she should stop ordering. So those kind of questions I think would be really important for like new people especially.
Okay. End of year.
I don't know that it's a bad idea to like cast a wider net though, because maybe that person isn't actually on the acquisition SIG list yet, so you might be able to pull more people in.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm not on that list yet. I was about to go get on it.
Yeah. Okay, so like how to get started with acquisitions, what are the best practices for people?
Yeah, and just giving the links to like koha manual, that was one of the things that she didn't have yet. So just whatever we had, basically, I just gave her like a bunch of links to all the like koha wiki and all that stuff. So just knowing where to find that's maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Stuff. Yeah, because I will refer to that manual at least once a week, just I think I know what this does, but let me double check, or that kind of thing, or I don't know what this is. I never heard of this before. What's this? So
is anyone on 2505 yet?
No, I think the early adopters don't get moved until mid-August, I want to say.
And this is a minor upgrade, or is this one of the big upgrades?
This will be the, every year there's the 2 major upgrades. This is one of those 2 major ones.
Okay. And then acquisitions 2.0, when are they planning to launch that? What's the ETA on that?
It's not going to be yes, no kind of thing, 1.0, 2.0. It's going to be more of what I gathered at the last meeting is they're going to have a branch, in the code. And so there'll be 1.0 running, and then they will kind of add a branch for 2.0 that they will, that you can go in and test and try things. And so it's going to be more of a gradual changeover and not just an abrupt thing, because they want to make sure that they're not missing any function or, coded something so that it doesn't work the way people expect it to, all those kinds of things. But like I think 25.05 is going to, by Kristen, is going to have like the vendor information in it, so that it will, that will be kind of the first little step. So it's going to be a gradual changeover. I think they want to get it all done in like 2 years. They want to be able to finish that all up and get it in there. At first they were thinking they would do it as a plug-in, and then integrate it later, but they thought that might be a recipe for disaster. When they actually go to integrate it, it might not work exactly like the plugin did and things. So they're going to have the code in Koha and you can use it, but it'll be a real gradual changeover. Maybe something like, I don't know, this is the thought I had, but the search stuff, Zebra versus Elastic, you can kind of pick one or the other and run with that. But that's just me talking. That might not be the party line or whatever. So, okay, then I will do two things. I will send out an email with the questions about the groups, the basket groups and the library groups. And you can dig into that and see what's there and what your thoughts are about that. And then I will also send out an email to maybe ByWater partners, or not, just Koha in general, asking people that are new to Koha what kinds of things they would be interested in seeing related to acquisitions stuff. That sound good?
Perfect. Let me know if you need any help. I'm always happy to do a little research or just write something basic.
Okay.
I will use ChatGPT to check my work. Just as sometimes my grammar is off, which is like so embarrassing, but whatever.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm right there with you. When I was going through school, they came up with a new way to learn English, and none of us learned any English when we did that. My younger siblings all have much stronger English skills, but they weren't subjected to Robert's New English or something like that. I forget what it was called, but it was terrible. Anyway, that is an aside. Okay. Everyone have a wonderful, let's see, between now and then, we've got Juneteenth and we've got July 4th, 2 holidays. Be safe. Don't get too excited for the fireworks or anything like that. So keep all your fingers. And we will see you on the 15th, I think I said. So bye, everybody.